A breakthrough is a moment when everything changes. It is the divine point where the barriers you faced are shattered and the doors that seem permanently closed are flung wide open. But let me tell you, a breakthrough doesn't just happen. It is orchestrated by God's plan. He has been working in the background, aligning every piece, every person, and every opportunity for this very moment. You may have been waiting, praying, and wondering if your time would ever come. You may have felt the weight of delay, the frustration of unanswered questions, or even the sting of rejection. But understand this: God's plan for your life is never delayed and it is never denied. The time of waiting is not wasted time, it's preparation. It's in the waiting that God builds your character, strengthens your faith, and equips you for the promise. God's plan unfolds in ways that often seem mysterious to us. He works in ways we cannot see, in realms we cannot comprehend. But when the time is right, the breakthrough comes, and it's undeniable. What once looked like failure is revealed as a setup for victory. What once felt like loss becomes the foundation for a greater gain. What once seemed like silence from heaven becomes the loudest proclamation of His faithfulness. When God's plan begins to unfold, you must be ready to act. A breakthrough requires your participation. It's not just a moment to celebrate, it's a moment to step into purpose. This is the time to let go of fear, release doubt, and embrace the boldness that comes from knowing you are walking in alignment with God's will. You were created for this moment. Do not be surprised if your breakthrough comes in a way you didn't expect. God doesn't always operate according to human logic. The very situation that seemed like a dead end might be the door He uses to catapult you into your destiny. The relationships you thought were lost might be restored in ways that glorify Him. The challenges you face might become the testimony that transforms lives. God's plan for your life is bigger than anything you can imagine. He sees beyond the present and orchestrates events with eternity in mind. Your breakthrough is not just about you, it's about the impact you're called to make, the lives you're destined to touch, and the glory that belongs to Him. Now is the time to open your eyes and see what He has been preparing for you. The breakthrough is here. It is your moment to rise, to walk in the fullness of His plan, and to give Him the glory for what He has done. His plan is unfolding before your very eyes. Step into it with faith. A breakthrough is not merely an event, it is a divine intervention, a moment when the impossible becomes possible because of God's hand at work. It is the turning point where what seemed like insurmountable obstacles are suddenly removed, not by human effort alone, but by the orchestration of heaven. It is that moment when clarity replaces confusion, strength replaces weakness, and hope replaces despair. You may have felt trapped, as though every door you knocked on remained firmly shut. You may have questioned whether your prayers were heard or if your efforts were in vain. But a breakthrough reminds you that God has been present all along. His power is revealed in those moments when human effort reaches its limit and His divine will take center stage. A breakthrough doesn't arrive by accident or coincidence. It is the result of God's perfect timing and His intricate plan for your life. He has seen the battles you fought, the tears you've shed, and the faith you've held onto, even when it seemed like nothing was changing. And in His divine wisdom, He chooses the precise moment when your breakthrough will manifest, not too early and never too late. When a breakthrough happens, it is not just about the removal of obstacles, it is about transformation. It changes your perspective, renews your spirit, and gives you a glimpse of God's sovereignty. It's not just an event, it's evidence of God's faithfulness and a confirmation that He is in control. In that moment, you realize that the struggle was not in vain. The delays, the detours, and even the disappointments were all part of a greater plan to prepare you for this very moment. A breakthrough is God's way of demonstrating His ability to do exceedingly abundantly above all you could ever ask or imagine. It's a reminder that nothing is too difficult for Him. It's a moment that shifts the atmosphere where the natural bends to the will of the supernatural and His promises are fulfilled right before your eyes. God's timing is not our timing, and that can be one of the most challenging truths to accept. We often operate on schedules and deadlines expecting immediate results, but God is never rushed, never early, and never late. His timing is perfect, and it is aligned with His ultimate purpose for our lives. While we may see delay as a denial, in God's perspective, every delay is intentional and filled with purpose. During these moments of waiting, it may feel as though nothing is happening. The silence can be deafening, and the absence of visible progress can be discouraging. But understand this: in the unseen, God is working. He is aligning circumstances, moving people, and preparing opportunities that you cannot yet perceive. The wait is not a sign that God has forgotten you. It's a sign that He is carefully crafting something extraordinary. When we try to move ahead of God, we often find ourselves frustrated, forcing doors open that were never meant for us. But when we trust His timing, we discover that everything falls into place with ease and clarity. God's timing ensures that you are in the right place at the right moment with the right tools to handle the breakthrough He is bringing. The waiting period is also a test of faith and obedience. It is in these moments that God shapes your character, teaching you patience, resilience, and trust in Him. He uses the waiting to remove what doesn't belong in your life and to strengthen the areas that will support the weight of the blessings He is about to pour out. God's timing is like the rising of the sun. You cannot rush it and you cannot stop it. But when it comes, it is undeniable. You must trust that He knows what He is doing. What you perceive as a delay is often a divine alignment. God is never in a hurry, but He is always on time. And when His plan unfolds, you will see why it had to happen exactly when it did. The waiting season is not just a passage of time, it is a divine classroom where God teaches, refines, and prepares you for the promise He has in store. It is in this season that He works on your heart, shaping your character and strengthening your faith so that you can sustain the breakthrough when it comes. Many people want the blessing but are unprepared for the responsibility that comes with it. God knows that without preparation, the very thing you pray for could overwhelm you or even cause harm. In the waiting, God is pruning. He removes distractions, eliminates unhealthy attachments, and refines your focus. He is not punishing you, but protecting you from stepping into something before you are ready. Imagine giving a child the keys to a car before they've learned to drive. It would be dangerous. In the same way, God withholds certain things until you've developed the maturity, wisdom, and discipline to handle them. This season is also where your faith is fortified. It's easy to believe when everything is going well, but real faith is built in the silence, in the moments when answers don't come immediately. It's in these times that you learn to trust God, not for what He does, but for who He is. Waiting teaches you to rely on His promises even when you cannot see the evidence. It's where your roots grow deep, anchoring you in His word and making you unshakable. The waiting period is not passive, it is active preparation. It's a time to sharpen your skills, expand your knowledge, and draw closer to God. He may place opportunities before you to grow in ways that seem unrelated to your breakthrough, but they are essential pieces of the puzzle. David didn't go straight from the field to the throne. He first faced the lion and the bear, challenges that prepared him to face Goliath and eventually lead a nation. Understand that waiting is not wasted time. It is the soil where your faith is cultivated and your purpose begins to take shape. It is God's way of ensuring that when the breakthrough comes, you won't just experience it, you'll thrive in it. You'll look back on the waiting season not as a time of frustration, but as a time of divine preparation, realizing it was the foundation for everything God has planned for you. God works in ways that go far beyond human understanding. His methods are not always obvious, and His plans often unfold in ways that seem mysterious. You may be looking at your circumstances and wondering how anything good could come from them. You may be trying to make sense of the delays, the setbacks, and the unanswered prayers. But what you must understand is that God is never inactive, even when it seems like nothing is happening. Behind the scenes, He is orchestrating every detail of your life with precision and purpose. God's ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. What may seem random or even chaotic to us is part of His divine strategy. He moves pieces into place in ways that we cannot see. He uses people, situations, and even what appears to be opposition to fulfill His plan. Think of Joseph, who was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused. Yet every one of those events was a step toward the fulfillment of God's promise. What looked like a series of tragedies was in fact the preparation for triumph. Often God's work is invisible to the human eye. While you're focused on the visible obstacles, He is removing barriers you didn't even know existed. While you're asking why certain doors are closed, He's preparing to open doors that no one can shut. While you're questioning why things are taking so long, He is aligning opportunities that will unfold at just the right moment. God's methods may not make sense to us in the moment. Sometimes the very thing we see as a setback is the platform He will use to elevate us. The rejection you experience might be His way of redirecting you to something far greater. The silence you hear might be His way of teaching you to trust Him more deeply. Even the challenges you face are tools in His hands, shaping you for the breakthrough that is coming. When God is at work, you must learn to trust Him even when you cannot trace His actions. His plan is not limited by human logic or constrained by time. He operates in the supernatural where nothing is impossible and everything is purposeful. What you see as confusion is clarity to Him. What you see as delay is His perfect timing. And what you see as failure is often the foundation for His greatest work. What you perceive as failure or loss is often God's way of redirecting your steps towards something greater. In the moment, it may feel like everything is falling apart, but in reality, it is falling into place. God's plans are so much bigger than our understanding, and sometimes He allows certain things to be removed or denied to make room for what He has prepared. What you see as the end of a dream may actually be the beginning of His greater purpose for your life. When you face disappointment, it's natural to question, to wonder why things didn't go as planned. But God sees the entire picture while we only see a fragment, that closed door you were frustrated about. It might have led to a path of destruction. That opportunity you thought you missed, it might have been a distraction from the real assignment God has for you. He knows what you need, and sometimes what looks like a setback is His way of steering you towards something that will exceed your expectations. Transformation often begins in the most unlikely moments. It is in the struggle, in the loss, and in the pain that God reveals His power. These are not wasted experiences. They are divine tools to prepare you for what is coming. The very thing you thought would break you is often the thing that builds you. God uses the challenges to strengthen your faith, refine your character, and increase your dependence on Him. God's ability to transform what seems like failure into victory is unmatched. The same waters that threatened to drown Noah became the very means by which God lifted him above the earth. The same pit that Joseph's brothers threw him into became the beginning of his journey to leadership. What the enemy intends for harm, God uses for good. He takes the ashes of your broken dreams and creates something beautiful, something that only He could design. The key is to trust Him even when you don't understand. Trust that He is working, even in the pain. Trust that the loss is not the end, but the beginning of something far greater. God is the master of turning setbacks into setups, of using what appears to be defeat as the foundation for your breakthrough. What you thought was over is not over. It is the start of something extraordinary that He is preparing to unfold in your life. Faith is the key that unlocks the door to your breakthrough. It is not just a belief in the existence of God, but a deep, unwavering trust in His promises, even when everything around you suggests otherwise. Faith is the currency of heaven. It moves the hand of God and brings His plans into reality. It is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Without faith, it is impossible to please God, because faith demonstrates your reliance on Him above all else. Faith is not passive, it requires action. It's not just sitting back and hoping things will work out. It's stepping forward even when you can't see the full path. Faith means trusting God enough to obey Him, even when His instructions seem illogical or uncomfortable. Think of Abraham, who left his home and everything familiar to go to a land God would show him later. He didn't have all the details, but his faith in God's character and promises moved him to act. Faith often flourishes in the face of adversity. It is easy to trust God when everything is going well, but real faith is tested and proven in the trials. When the odds are against you, when the storm is raging, and when the answers seem delayed, that is when faith grows. It's in those moments that you declare, I may not understand what's happening, but I trust the one who holds my future. That kind of faith moves mountains. Faith requires you to see beyond the natural and into the supernatural. It asks you to believe that what God has spoken will come to pass, even if there is no evidence yet. The world may call it foolish, but faith sees what others cannot. It sees victory in the face of defeat, provision in the face of lack, and healing in the face of sickness. Faith declares that God's promises are yes and amen, regardless of the current circumstances. Faith also shifts your perspective. Instead of focusing on the problem, faith focuses on the provider. It reminds you that God is greater than any challenge, bigger than any obstacle, and more powerful than any opposition. Faith doesn't ignore reality, but it chooses to believe in a higher reality, the reality of God's word and his unchanging nature. When you walk by faith, you activate God's power in your life. You align yourself with his will and make room for him to move. Faith honors God, and in turn, he honors faith. Your breakthrough is not a matter of chance or luck. It is the result of faith in a faithful God. Trust him even when you cannot trace him, and you will see his promises unfold in ways that exceed anything you could ask, think, or imagine. Patience is not just the ability to wait, it is how you wait that defines your faith and trust in God. It is easy to grow weary when the promises seem delayed, but patience is a reflection of your belief in God's perfect timing. When you trust him, you understand that his timing is not just good, it is perfect. He sees the end from the beginning, and his delays are never denials. Instead, they are moments of preparation, alignment, and refinement. Patience teaches you to rest in God's sovereignty, knowing that he is in control, even when you cannot see the full picture. It requires surrender, letting go of your need to control the outcome or rush the process. In your waiting, God is teaching you to rely on him completely, to let go of your own understanding, and to lean fully on his wisdom. Patience also protects you from premature moves. Sometimes what looks like an opportunity may not be part of God's plan. If you rush ahead, you may settle for less than what he has prepared for you. The Bible reminds us that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles, run and not grow weary, walk and not faint. This strength is found in the waiting, in the patience that trusts God to move at the right time. God uses the waiting season to deepen your character. Patience builds resilience, endurance, and strength. It shifts your focus from the destination to the journey, teaching you to find joy, peace, and purpose in every step. Patience transforms your waiting into worship as you choose to praise him even before the breakthrough manifests. It shows that your trust is not based on what he does, but on who he is. In your waiting, God is also working behind the scenes. He is aligning people, opportunities, and circumstances in ways you could never orchestrate. What feels like a delay to you is often his way of ensuring that everything is ready for the fulfillment of his promise. Imagine a farmer who plants seeds and waits for the harvest. He cannot see the growth happening beneath the soil, but he trusts that in due time, the seeds will bear fruit. In the same way, patience is the soil where your faith grows, allowing God to bring forth a harvest in his time. Patience doesn't mean passivity. While you wait, God calls you to prepare, to develop, and to grow. It's a time to sharpen your skills, deepen your relationship with him, and position yourself for what's to come. Patience is active trust. It's faith in motion, believing that what God has spoken will come to pass, no matter how long it takes. Trust his timing, for he is never late, and his plans are always worth the wait. Obedience is the bridge between God's promise and its fulfillment. It is the act of aligning your actions with his instructions, even when those instructions seem difficult, inconvenient, or unclear. Obedience is not about partial compliance or selective listening. It is about wholehearted submission to his will. When God speaks, he expects us to respond not with hesitation or doubt, but with trust and action. Sometimes the steps God asks you to take may not make sense in the moment. You might be called to walk a path that feels unfamiliar or uncomfortable, yet obedience is not about understanding, it's about trusting. Think of Noah, who was commanded to build an ark before there was any sign of rain. His obedience was not based on what he could see, but on his unwavering trust in what God had spoken. That kind of faith-filled obedience positions you for the breakthrough that God has already set in motion. Obedience often requires sacrifice. It may call you to let go of something you hold dear, whether it's a relationship, a habit, or even your own plans and ambitions. Yet every act of obedience is a step closer to God's best for your life. When you surrender what is in your hand, God is able to release what is in His. He is not trying to take something from you. He is preparing to give you something greater. Obedience is also about consistency. It's not just about saying yes to God in the big moments. It's about being faithful in the small, everyday acts of obedience. It's about following His lead in your decisions, your words, and your actions, no matter how insignificant they may seem. The little steps of obedience build a foundation for the bigger breakthroughs to come. Sometimes obedience will stretch your faith because it requires you to act without visible proof of the outcome. God might ask you to forgive someone who hurt you deeply, to give generously when your resources feel limited, or to step out in faith when the path ahead is unclear. Each act of obedience declares your trust in His promises and your belief in His ability to do exceedingly and abundantly above all you could ask or imagine. Obedience is not about perfection, it's about willingness. God is not looking for perfect people. He's looking for surrendered hearts. He understands your fears and doubts, but He honors your willingness to say yes, even when it's hard. Your obedience opens the door for His power to flow in your life, bringing His plans to fruition in ways that go beyond your wildest expectations. When you walk in obedience, you position yourself under the covering of God's favor. His blessings flow freely in the lives of those who listen and respond to His voice. Obedience is not about earning God's favor, it's about aligning with it. It's the key to unlocking the breakthrough that He has already prepared for you. Trust His instructions, follow His lead, and watch as His plans unfold with precision and purpose. You are not alone in this journey. God's presence is with you every step of the way. He is not a distant observer watching you struggle from afar. He is intimately involved in every moment of your life, guiding, comforting, and strengthening you. When you face difficulties, when the path seems unclear, know that God is walking alongside you, providing the grace and wisdom you need to move forward. His presence is your constant companion, and in that presence you find peace, courage, and assurance. God's presence is not limited by your circumstances, whether you are in the valley or on the mountaintop. He is with you, working in and through you. He promises in His word that He will never leave you nor forsake you. Even when you feel abandoned or isolated, remember that He is there, quietly but powerfully moving behind the scenes. His presence is a reminder that you are never alone, even in your darkest moments. The reality of God's presence changes everything. When you know He is with you, fear loses its grip on your heart. The challenges you face no longer seem as insurmountable because you understand that with God, all things are possible. His presence empowers you to press on, to stand firm in faith, and to trust that the breakthrough is already in motion. When God is with you, you are never at a disadvantage. In fact, His presence is your greatest advantage, for it guarantees that you will not walk through this life by your own strength, but by His. God's presence is a source of strength and encouragement. When you feel weak, He is your refuge and your fortress. He is the one who restores your soul, renews your energy, and fortifies your spirit. When you are weary, His presence gives you rest. When you are unsure, His presence brings clarity and peace. The more you stay in His presence, the more you become aware of His power and His ability to change your situation. It is in His presence that you are transformed, renewed, and equipped to face whatever comes your way. His presence also brings clarity. When you feel confused or uncertain about which direction to take, seek His presence. He will guide your steps and show you the way. The Holy Spirit who dwells within you is your constant counselor, providing wisdom and discernment in every decision. No matter what challenge lies ahead, God's presence in your life guarantees that you have access to divine wisdom and direction. When you live with the awareness of God's presence, it fills you with a peace that transcends understanding. This peace guards your heart and mind, keeping you calm and steady even in the midst of the storm. You may not have all the answers, but knowing that God is with you gives you confidence that you are on the right path. He will never leave you to navigate life's challenges on your own. His presence will always guide you, comfort you, and lead you into the fulfillment of His promises. The breakthrough you are waiting for is not just an event, it is a relationship. It is an ongoing connection with the one who holds your future in his hands. In his presence, you find everything you need to fulfill the purpose he has set for you. His presence is your source of strength, your anchor in the storm, and your assurance that no matter how long the wait, his plan will always unfold in its perfect timing. The breakthrough you are waiting for is not just about the moment it arrives, it's about the process that prepares you for it. God's plan unfolds gradually, and in the waiting, you are being shaped, refined, and equipped for the life he has promised you. Many times we focus so much on the end result that we miss the importance of the journey. The process is where your character is built, where your faith is tested, and where you are positioned to receive what God has for you. God is not in a rush. His timing is perfect, and his methods are intentional. When you go through seasons of waiting, it may seem like nothing is happening. But in the background, God is working things out for your good, aligning circumstances, positioning people, and even molding your heart to be ready for what is to come. It's in the waiting that you learn to depend on him more fully, to trust him without hesitation, and to grow in the understanding that his plan is better than anything you could have imagined on your own. In the process, God is teaching you perseverance. The challenges you face are not there to defeat you, but to strengthen you. Each trial, each moment of delay is an opportunity for you to practice patience, faith, and obedience. The stronger your faith becomes, the more you are prepared to carry the weight of the breakthrough when it finally arrives. Just as a muscle must be stretched and challenged to grow stronger, your spiritual strength grows as you press through the difficulties with your eyes on the prize. God's plan unfolds in layers, and each layer builds upon the last. Every step you take, even when it feels small or insignificant, is leading you closer to the fulfillment of his promises. You may not understand how everything fits together right now, but trust that God is orchestrating every detail of your life. He is working in ways you cannot see, preparing the perfect environment for his will to be made manifest in your life. The process also involves purification. God is refining you, purging away the things that hinder your growth. There may be things in your life, mindsets, habits, relationships, or even desires that are not in alignment with his plan for you. As you walk through this process, he is gently, and sometimes not so gently, removing those things so that you can step into the fullness of your breakthrough without anything weighing you down. It may not always feel comfortable, but this purification is necessary for you to be the person who can handle the blessing when it comes. Sometimes the process will also involve waiting on God's perfect timing. It can be difficult to see others receiving their breakthrough while you remain in your waiting season, but God has a plan for you that is unique. His timing is not based on comparison to others. He knows exactly when you are ready, when the situation is right, and when everything aligns for the fulfillment of his purpose in your life. Trust that his timing will not only meet your needs, but will exceed your expectations. In the waiting, God is also teaching you to trust him even when things don't make sense. The breakthrough may seem far off, but in that moment of uncertainty, God is working on your trust in him. Your trust becomes the foundation for what he is about to bring into your life. When you can still believe, still have faith, and still move forward despite the challenges, you are demonstrating to God that you trust his plan and his timing above your own understanding. God uses the process to deepen your relationship with him. As you grow in trust, you grow in intimacy with him. The waiting season becomes a time of drawing closer to God, learning his heart, and understanding his ways. It's in the process that you learn to hear his voice more clearly, to recognize his leading, and to rely on his presence in a way that you couldn't have before. This relationship is not just a means to an end, but the heart of the breakthrough itself. So when you are in the process, don't rush it. Embrace the lessons God is teaching you, knowing that every moment is a step closer to the breakthrough you've been praying for. The waiting is not wasted. It is part of the divine preparation that makes you ready to receive everything that God has for you. Trust in his plan, trust in his timing, and know that he is faithful to bring to completion the work he has started in you. As we stand in the midst of our challenges, our doubts, and our waiting, we must remember that God is working behind the scenes. His plan is unfolding with perfect precision, and every step we take is a part of his divine design. The breakthrough is not just a moment in time, but a culmination of growth, trust, obedience, and God's unwavering faithfulness. We are never alone in this journey. God's presence is with us every step of the way, guiding us, strengthening us, and preparing us for what He has promised. The process we experience is not in vain. It is shaping us into the individuals who are ready to receive the breakthrough He has already ordained for our lives. In moments of uncertainty, let us hold on to faith, knowing that the waiting, the challenges, and the process are not obstacles. They are the means by which God is preparing us for the incredible things He has in store. Keep moving forward in trust, keep believing, and stay obedient, for the breakthrough is coming, and God's plan will unfold in His perfect timing. He has never failed, and He will not fail you now. The breakthrough is here. God's plan is unfolding. Step into it with confidence and anticipation, for it is a plan that is filled with hope, purpose, and an abundant future.